No.
Is it bad?
No, I got it. I got it.
It's just a black
eyelash or mascara. She was like all moist.
Gross. Don't use that word.
Sick.
But it's the holiday season. And I was just...
And do.
I don't know all the songs.
I don't either.
But I know that most of the songs, I was just thinking to myself, I don't know where we were listening to them. And actually, I went to Wolfhound Irish Pub. Mm-hmm. And I was asking Eric, because he was playing them too. I'm like, man, all the holiday songs seem like super somber and sad. I'm like, do you know why? And he's like, it's just the time of the year. And, it's kind of, I get it. And that's what a good explanation would be. But then I bring it up to my history husband. And he's like, funny, you should mention that. And I'm like, oh, God, here we go. But,
you got a lecture. You got a lecture.
There are most of the music, like for holidays are somber because a lot of them were written during medieval times. And I wish I could remember all of them. The one that comes to my mind is The Little Drummer Boy.
Yeah.
And then what's the one like in Home Alone where like the choir is singing?
The First Noel or Holy Night. Holy Night.
I think it's Holy Night.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites.
All those derive from, medieval times where it wasn't the greatest of times. People were dying left and right. Death was all around us. So,
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. It was somber. It was somber. Because winter was, lack of food and preservation and stuff like that. So then you move on to the next category of music for the holidays, and that's the 30s and 40s, and that's the jingles I think that most of us know, like the jolly jingles-ish.
Rocking Around the Christmas Tree or whatever? Is that newer? I don't know anything. Like 50, is it?
Yeah, but that would still probably partake in like these.
What about like this White
one?
Christmas, the movie?
Okay, so that is the third category, which is the 70s and 80s when a lot of Christmas music was trying to be, I guess, revived again, but in a jollier aspect. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, 3 categories of music. They do kind of like pump up in positivity, I think, as you go. Yeah. So maybe that's a telling of the times. I don't know.
So you're saying when I get teary-eyed when Silent Night comes on, it's not just because I have very nostalgic memories with that song, but also because it's maybe meant to tug on the heartstrings.
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah. So Silent Night and Holy Night, where it's like, is that the one that's like fall on your knees? So hear that? Yeah. Those two never fails. I'll cry like a baby. And I always thought it was like because of the traditions that my grandma had, and those songs were always playing. So I was like, it was in my head. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
No, you're probably feeling the pain of millions and millions from years past.
Oh, joy.
Yeah.
Joy.
Sorry.
God, well, what a bummer.
But the holidays, to be quite honest, aren't happy, joy for everyone. And it is a time where you tend to, everybody wants you to be happy, but a lot of people don't. I mean, they're remembering people from their past who aren't still with us. And, especially this year, because I don't think I'm alone when I say money is different. It's a little tighter. You have, you start, as you get older, you start to look around and you realize how fortunate you are to be able to provide some things, for your family and for yourself. And it kind of brings on this, I don't know, you feel fortunate, but you also tend to feel a little deeper, the people around you and the need for things. Like I was talking about the Angel Tree with the gal from Toys for Tots and the Serve with Love that it's an incredible organization that feeds veterans and their families, and also everybody registered for Toys for Tots. And it just kind of makes you stop and realize how fortunate we are to be able to cook that meal, even though it's a little more expensive, or to buy those gifts, even though they may tug on the pocketbook a little bit extra this year. But yeah, so when you guys do, talking about Christmas, when you guys do gifts, I've noticed a thing the past few years that it's like, give your kids like 5 gifts, I think, something they need, something they want, something they wear. And it's like a stack of gifts rather than like a whole slew of things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of look at it especially as your kids are older.
Yeah.
When your kids are older, it's like, what do you buy them?
Yeah.
And what do you want? And more so, it's what do you need? Yeah. And a lot of it is more need-based. And I think we kind of balance that want-need thing. like for Alex, for example, can't buy him clothes. He's too bougie. He wouldn't like what we bought him.
Yeah.
So we don't do that.
Yeah.
But we'll get him.
What does Alex wear?
He wants tailored
H&M, whatever,
tailored
Brooks
suits
Brothers,
and- yeah.
whatever, yada,
H&M
yada.
have changed their like brand and stuff like that. A lot of those brands, it's like people relied on whatever. I mean, I know a man, again, referring to my husband again, but he is uniform based and like always ordered
Khaki pants.
Yep. Flannel shirts, same companies all the time. And through the years, they changed things. And oh my God, does that tick him off? He'll put on the same pair of pants that he's ordered for 10 years, and now they're different.
No, I can't find him.
Why do things change?
I don't know, because I like for years it's like, okay, it's been Old Navy jeans and then Ben Hogan like khakis. That's been like for the last 5 years, and that seems to work out okay for me. And then polo shirts. That's kind of my those are my three
That's
things
your
that I
uniform.
stick to pretty much. And then whatever goofy T-shirt I want to wear on here. So, but I you know he had this when he was home for Thanksgiving. He had his James Bond pea coat. That was the exact same coat that Daniel Craig wore in like the last movie.
Really?
Snazzy.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't even want to know how much he paid for it.
Yeah.
So, but it was very nice. And then Scott's still like whatever funky. He'll wear like SpongeBob socks and whatever. And it's just so funny because and Alex used to not be as I mean he was a kid. He wasn't as persnickety. And Scott is in that whatever mode: sweatpants, SpongeBob socks, one of Dad's T-shirts that he steals. And then Michelle's very fashionable as well. So, but I think that again, it's to me, and I've told him, I'm like, I'll give him like a list of 5 things, and usually it's a bottle of something, or this here was a new wallet, and it's just like little stuff, not much. It's like, I just want you all here.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit what you get me, what you bring me, what you buy me. I just want you all here.
Yeah.
And that is, and that's great. And they're all going to be here this year because they were here for Thanksgiving, and they hadn't all been here since the 4th.
Yeah.
So to have them all here, like so close, is great. But who knows when it's going to happen again?
Well, that's nice.
So, yeah.
So wait, they are going to all be here for
They'll
Christmas?
all be here for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
So for Christmas, I always say every year I'm going to pare it down a little bit. We're not going to go all out. And then it seems like the sooner I start, the more I amass for everybody. So I'm like, now I'm looking at shit. I'm like, holy smokes. And then I'm kind of the girl who's like, well, she only has this and she has this. And then I'm trying to
Ellen
make things
is
even.
like that.
Ugh, shoot me now.
Ellen also is the queen of buying the kids stuff, forgetting where it is,
Yeah, I do
and then
that too.
finding it in like July.
Yeah, I do that too.
So it's like Christmas in July. That's perfect, though.
Or saving it for the next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been running across this meme over and over again where it's presents just pouring out everywhere under the tree, all different wrapping paper. It's like almost like havoc.
Yeah.
Like crazy. And they're like, man, Christmas
Typical consumerism.
in the 90s hit differently. And I think that for those of us that grew up in the 90s, we try to replicate that same experience that you woke up to, that havoc, but at the same time it was awesomeness and chaos.
It's
Christmas
almost
chaos. But
almost
we don't do that anymore.
It's almost untouchable to get to that because what we're trying to recreate isn't possible because
because times have changed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we brought our guests that we're going to get to here on. Times are changing. Things cost more. And even though like it's a hard pill to swallow, especially around these times when we're trying to replicate our own childhood Christmas nostalgia. So
Well, I think when you're talking about that, especially in terms of government spending and stuff, it's the cost of everything, and most of it, as our guest will tell you, pensions is such a huge part of that now, and it's something they have to figure out. But also, when you haven't done things that you should have been doing all along, the price of fixing that is going to be more. So if you say don't work on a street or don't do whatever, and then you wait around, then it gets more expensive. So then that becomes all the stuff you need to do, and when it comes something that you want to do, like riverfront development or some people want to do and others don't, then it's like, we can't
Stop
do that.
pointing at me, Bob.
I'm not. I'm going to use my hands. But I said you would look at it as, okay, we can't do that now because we have to fix these streets that need fixing or whatever, and the water pipes that now need replacing. So yeah, and again, I think that when you look at the rising cost of everything, it hits at government, and then so when people's taxes do go up, they're like, well, what am I paying for? It's like, well, you're just paying for basic services now because everything's a heck of a lot more expensive than it was.
Which I think is why people are more on a necessity-based spending, initiative type government, right? So that's how I look at things. If it's a need, we need to look at it and digest it and deal with it and move on.
But if it's a
want, it's probably something that needs to, I always say there needs to be buckets of what are our 5 biggest
wants.
Necessities first. I mean, you
Yeah,
have to look
absolutely.
at what do we need and what can't we cannot put this off. So what are those top 5 things, and what is kind of like the forecasted cost of each of those things, and how do we expect people to swallow those increases in taxes to pay for these things, right? Or where is this money coming from? And I think what helps in every situation, whether it's a need or a want, is factual information dumbed down to a level that makes it digestible, as well as a very well thought out plan. And I think that what we've been missing as of late is factual information from, unless you go to these meetings and you understand big words and you understand all the buckets and where the money's coming from and the terminology, it's really hard to understand if this is legit, right? And if this is actually what's going to happen. So to have a well thought out plan with terminology that's dumbed down for people like me to understand, as well as maybe some follow-up of, hey, here's what we said we were going to do, this is what we've done, this is what's happened because of that, just some revisiting some of the things that we've done in the past to say, look, this is what we said we were going to do, this is what we did, this is where it came from, this is how much your taxes went up, here's how we plan to, translate that into this project, and stay tuned. We'll give you the updates, or we'll give you the progress, as we go. And I think that always helps. And I know it's available in city council meetings, but not everybody can go to those. Not everybody wants to go because a lot of the
It's
language,
time-consuming, too.
the language that's
Goes
used
over your
is-
head.
Yeah, it's a lot. So
This is all about, this episode is all about understanding,
Yeah.
and what a better time to present it during the holidays, when we are all open to maybe understanding people's situations a little bit more,
Yep.
and learning to understand our own situation a little bit more.
So I'm excited to talk to our guest. He is very, very smart, very, very dedicated to the city of Quincy and to the city council. And I think that if anybody can give us the information in layman's terms, as well as also give us the information in a way that that we can all understand, in a way that's also very. He's one of us. He's not somebody who's out there trying to, just dictate things for his own pocketbook, right? So I'm really excited to talk to him.
Okay.
So
It's the holiday season.
Yeah. Cheers.
Okay, we'll be right back.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
Is it okay that we take the pickle shot on the camera?
Or we
Sure.
can do it with
Okay, good, because I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think we should have a pickle shot down the hatch before we get this
Get
thing
going.
rolling, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It is the tradition behind.
Are we
the
rolling?
camera.
No?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Ah,
All right.
okay. Well,
All right.
cheers to
Cheers.
E-Dog, Eric Entrup.
E-Dog!
Welcome. Cheers.
Cheers.
For those of you listening and not watching, you just heard us gulp down a pickle
Go,
shot.
go.
Yeah.
That was pretty good, guys.
They're fantastic. Of course, we got them from the Liquor Booth.
Liquor booth.
Shout out to one of our favorite sponsors. So, Eric, we were talking before, and in our intro, we were talking about, times are changing, and times seem to be a little bit harder. So we'll get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of why you're here in just a minute, which is this property tax discussion, right? Dun, 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 dun. But before we go there, I want to get a little background of you. I know you personally, have known you for a long time. I think anybody who knows you knows that you're a stand-up dude, knows that you're very down-to-earth, personable. You want the best for everybody, and for that, I applaud you as a human being, and that's as much as I'll kiss your ass tonight, okay? And that's it. All right.
It's really nice.
Okay. But I asked you before we got started, do you like being an alderman? For those of you who don't know, Eric is, he sits on the city council, and you are a representative of what ward?
First ward.
First ward.
So like the northwest corner of Quincy, basically.
Okay.
Yep.
So you get to sit in on all these fantastical, very interesting meetings, right? Every Monday,
Right.
and help out our city, which again, thank you for stepping up for that.
Also, that's one of the hardest wards,
Yeah.
or most difficult. I don't want to like put a spotlight or sound awful, but for anyone that lives in Quincy or knows Quincy, we know that that might be the area that might be like one of the trying wards, just
Definitely.
for
Yeah, we have our challenges. There's definitely, I wouldn't say it's the hard. I mean,
it might be.
because like Ward 2, you know, where it's,
Well,
I go from Cherry Street to the north.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's
So like Jeff Bergman and Dave Bauer definitely have
some of the hands
a good
full.
part, and then they have Broadway and stuff too, where they have a lot of businesses they deal with and stuff.
But
where
these are some of
we
the
deal with it.
oldest-
Oh yeah,
oldest
any of
homes
us,
in
basically
town.
Ward 1, Ward 2, and Ward 7 that you have a lot of other stuff that you deal with
Mm-hmm.
that other wards maybe don't. Maybe they have a couple a year or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there are squeaky wheels, which we talked about a little bit, in every ward that constantly want to reach out. They want to be engaged, which is awesome, but it also makes your job a little more difficult, also more rewarding. So I want to throw both sides out. But before we get into all that again, do you enjoy being an alderman? Loaded question number
Yeah.
one.
It depends what day.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what topic is going on. I mean, I think overall, yes, I do. I like to have my vote. I like to be up with what's going on, and definitely, I don't know, I like to have my say in the conversation, I guess
Sure.
you could say, because I don't know, I feel like it definitely matters to me, and I have the objective of, like, you know, I have 3 teenage kids that I want them to come back here, or
Sure.
after they go to college. I want them to have, you know, incentive to be able to want to stay in Quincy, stuff like that. So, yeah, I do like it most of the time, but definitely not all the time.
Right, yeah.
You know?
So we were talking about when I was running, I had people reach out to me, and the biggest problem in that moment was the cat problem. And boy, wouldn't we love to just have that problem
goodness.
today,
Yeah,
right?
I was just
now,
thinking.
I'm not downplaying that, because it is a very big issue, and I think there are ways to solve it. We're not going to solve it today, but it was one of the things that I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can
Get a handle on this.
I think I would be really, really good at the customer service side, communicating with all my constituents, making sure that I'm trying my damnedest to solve the issues that are important to people, at least the ones reaching out, and then use my representation in these city council meetings and use my voice to not only represent them, but also my family and my objectives. And, you know, we're Quincy through and through. I think everybody at this table. But I quickly realized that it may have been a blessing in disguise that I didn't win, because, as you said, I think everybody starts with that feeling of, yeah.
Yeah, you
Gung-ho.
start with the simple idea of, like, yeah, fixing sidewalks, you know, somebody calls you and wants a tree trimmed and all those little things, and then you don't even think about stuff like you're going to be voting on a random, would have thought a roundabout is
Yeah.
the hottest topic in town. Like,
Right.
I mean, and just stuff like that. It's stuff you cannot even imagine. You go into a meeting and you say, okay, well, this meeting tonight will probably be 20 minutes. I'll be in and out. You tell your wife, like, yeah, I'll be home in no time.
I'll be home for dinner. Yeah.
And that was a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't know what is going to come up, what the next thing is
Yeah.
going to be. And
Some of
that's the
those things
stuff
are
that-
huge
yeah.
things that affect the entire community, everyone's
Yeah.
families. So that can't be an easy, burden to take on too, where you do have to make a decision. I'll never forget that you made the decision, or you proposed on the infamous food and beverage tax. Eric here made the what do you call it, amendment? You made the amendment from making it from a 2% to a 1%, which then got it to pass. My question right now is, do you think we're going to go back to a 2%? And will you be the one that proposes this since you amended it down?
I definitely don't think we would go back to a 2%. The question is if we're going to keep it.
Oh, how could you not, though, with the fact that, yes, it does. But, like, we have now become completely reliant on this. Some people call it a slush fund. Myself may have called that included. I have seen some good come from it. I still stand on, I don't think it needed to be implemented in the first place, but I'm not going to deny the good that I see that came from it. What scares me, though, is with this impending property tax, which we'll get to shortly, because that's what you're here for, is to dumb it down and explain it. Is the food and beverage tax going to be affected? And if so, do you think maybe that will be, hey, this was so successful, let's raise it 1 more %? Back to the initial plan. I
think
anything's possible.
It's up for debate because it does. The whole thing started with, there was this set of ideas, the 45 by 30 plan and all that. And a lot of all of that got implemented. And now we're finding out some stuff worked, some stuff didn't work. We're going to definitely gotten rid of some of the stuff that didn't work and some of the stuff that people didn't like. So, but there is some
stuff. How do you do that too, by the way? Like when you said get rid of some of the stuff that people didn't like, how do you listen to your people of how they didn't like it?
That's a great question. I think from really public input,
would it be Facebook?
For me, no, because I'm not on Facebook. So I get
But you
nothing.
Still hear it through what your wife says, what the public says.
Yeah, I get it through public. I get it through coworkers. You gotta remember, I'm in construction, so I'm on job sites all the time.
Yeah.
I hear
everybody. And they're on the Facebook.
I mean, I have coworkers that tell me stuff that's confidential with the city that I don't even know yet.
Yeah.
They're like, well,
how'd you get that? I got it from Facebook.
I heard at Hy-Vee gas station this morning that.
I think some of the times Ashley and I have had this discussion over and over again. I just had this discussion with David the other day. We forget the power of Facebook. We sometimes think that because it's not the order that you're supposed to go in to reach your alderman, that it should be ignored as kind of the idea, which that shouldn't be the case.
Not the official way to communicate, nor has it been, but that doesn't mean that... But
now that I think times are changing.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean...
all of it.
Everything's changing. The holidays, our taxes.
When you have the expectation that Facebook is not the way to communicate, it says to me that maybe it's kind of, that's not the way it has been done before. It is definitely a monumental communication tool. Not saying that it is. If I had a problem in my ward, I'm not going to take to Facebook to bitch about it before I give my alderman a chance to reconcile.
Directly.
Because I think that's the equivalency of blasting a restaurant on social media because of one shitty server that I had without giving them the chance to kind of rectify the situation. Also, I think it kind of creates this negative platform of people to come out with no faces or no real consequence to just blast everybody without actually putting skin in the game. It is a good place to get an overall feel of
what the public's feeling.
What the public is feeling. However, you also have to take into effect your algorithm, your friend group, because it can, in essence, become a fart chamber. Which we've used that terminology, right? So
you're kind of on the ball, though, here, Eric, by not having Facebook.
So, Luke doesn't have it either. It's very smart, I think.
And that is the thing. I can get on and look, but I really don't that much. Like my wife has it, but I don't hardly ever get on it.
Yeah.
But I know, or if a coworker tells me something like, look at all these comments, like, but if you look at it, it's like, okay, it's the same
people.
10,
Same.
15 people.
Very
Like,
Does that
every
mean,
night,
though,
it's the
then
same.
your email is inundated? Like, since you're not communicating people this way, and I don't know how many people, do you get a lot of phone calls? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah,
What is it more,
kind
though,
of.
phone calls or email
Probably
for you?
emails, really. I get a lot of emails.
Really?
Definitely people reach out anymore a lot with email, for
What's
sure.
your
but
email response time policy for yourself? Look,
usually
mine's
within
awful.
usually
I get in so much trouble
yeah,
for mine.
I'm usually a day or two on email.
Good.
That's
And
perfect.
phone
That's
calls,
awesome.
maybe a day or two. Sometimes I text them back or something, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back to you with info or something. But
Yeah.
Communication is key.
It is key, and that's what I was saying. I think I would have been really good at the communication aspect as far as sitting in on the meetings and not going brain drain with all the numbers and all the things that I'm like, what are we talking about again? Can you
Oh,
draw me
no.
a picture?
And that is part of it. Like I leave my city phone usually on most days on
Yeah.
the weekday at home
Yeah.
because if I try to intermingle all day while I'm working and try to answer my city phone too throughout, I mean, I'll forget half
Yeah.
the shit anybody told me.
Pretty
Yeah.
soon you're traveling
You know, like,
in your drywall truck to the
People have to understand, just, you're going to be better off to leave me
Yeah.
a message, and I'll have a better chance of exactly knowing what we're going to deal with. Because most of us have a job.
yeah,
There's a few guys that are retired,
sure.
but most of us, have full-time jobs when we're doing this.
That's something
So
you need to remember too. I think our constituents need to remember that too, because it's admirable to hold a full-time job and be an alderman. Because in reality, to be an alderman as your full-time job isn't.
It's not lucrative.
Yeah,
for
it's
one.
not like I don't want to say it's not possible, because obviously you just said people are retired, so it is possible in that aspect. But if you're young and I don't want to say in the know, but because they can be in the know too. But like if you're involved, young, whatever, you kind of have to do two things.
Yeah.
I did say
And-
communication is key, and that is why we have you here today. So the property taxes are raising, and I feel like I've read the stories, and I'm pretty good at like kind of comprehending things, but yet I still don't understand what's going on.
Same.
And like from what I have comprehended so far is we can have anywhere from a 4.9-ish% increase in our city property taxes up to a 20, almost 25%. It hasn't been decided. There have been 5 options presented to our councilmen. I don't really know exactly what those are and the differences in that is. From what I've gathered so much is that on this property tax bill, like a big difference that you're going to see from your next or from your last property tax bill is that they are wanting, and I don't know if it's decided on or what, that council, city, everyone is wanting to put library expenses all in one place. And that's out of your property taxes. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, mailman.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're trying to get all the library expenses out of just our property taxes as opposed to taking some out of the general fund. For those of you that don't know, I believe the general fund is all derived from sales tax. So part of it used to come from your general fund. Part of it comes from your property tax. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the microphone. I really messed up the stuff now, didn't I?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay, so now we want it all to come from property tax. Am I correct on that part?
Not all, but we're basically looking to raise it to the
Thank you, Newman.
highest amount, basically, that's
So,
required by the state.
because-
Hang on,
the state-
pause. Sorry.
Okay.
Number one, Eric is here
Okay, yeah,
to
sorry.
help us understand. He's not on the chopping block, nor is he representing himself in
No, he came here to help.
He
Thank
came here
you.
to help us
Thank
understand.
you.
So thank you. Number two, for anyone who doesn't even understand what the hell we're talking about, there is something that has been brought to you guys to make a decision on, right? And that is
This happens every year, though. It's property taxes.
Property tax increase.
The tax levy.
Tax
The
levy.
rate.
What is a tax levy rate? For those like me, that I'm like, I don't even know what this is or how it affects any of us. Sorry, but
No,
I need to
you're fine.
understand
Okay.
the foundation of it.
So let me start off by saying to everyone in the public, I'm just a drywaller.
Okay.
I love
There's no such thing as just a drywaller, because if
No.
anybody's tried it, it's freaking hard and miserable. So thank you for that too.
So-
Okay.
Everyone has to understand that
And
too.
you have done your due
When I go
diligence.
through this stuff, yeah, it rattles my brain too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess that's why you guys invited me.
But
here,
thank you
because-
for doing your homework.
Because yes,
and helping
I'm
us.
trying to take a common sense approach, but I try to dumb it down because that's what I need to do
Sure.
to understand it myself.
Yeah. So a tax levy, let's start there.
So
Okay.
the
So a
tax
tax
levy-
levy is basically, in essence, saying this is
First-
how much.
The
on
first thing you have to understand is this is the city portion. So
Okay.
you're looking at like 14% of your whole property tax bill is
city.
what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
It's
So
just the city.
14% is city.
So like the rest, you're talking about the Quincy School District.
Okay.
You're talking about the Park District.
So there's different buckets.
Yep.
that
yep.
This is
all
all
boil
just our
down.
city property
That all
taxes. We're
comes out
not
of
talking
that
about our
big,
county property
fat
taxes.
tax bill that you get.
Okay.
So when
So
we talk about
14%,
these numbers,
yeah.
you're talking about a fraction of your overall tax
Thank
bill.
you. Okay. So 14%, and I'm not saying that's a small amount. I'm just saying I want to understand in essence how this affects Ashley's property taxes. So a tax levy from the city is affecting 14% of that overall tax bill.
So like, for instance, last year, everybody's tax bill, we lowered our rate.
Yes.
So technically, everyone should have had a lower tax rate, but because of all the inflation, everything going on, the EAV, your assessed
Estimated.
value on
Uh-huh.
all of our homes went up.
Sure.
So it went up last year. I don't even remember what percent, but
Mm-hmm.
basically that was what everybody on average said. Maybe $100 more was their tax bill last year. A
Wha-
couple $100 more.
Okay.
Why?
And that was just your assessed value.
Yeah.
Why
Just the
would we
value
lower?
amount.
Don't we always raise incrementally at a time, considering we have
Basically,
the elephant in the room is the pensions that everyone doesn't want to talk about? But like, why would we not?
because last year we put extra into pensions. We funded over 100. It was like at that. What we've been doing is at that 104% mark, and that personal property replacement tax, that PPRT, which is kind of what has caused all this, was so coming in so over budget that they had surplus in the past couple of years.
So they wanted to spread that to the constituents and make
Right.
it not hurt
So we were still
as much.
paying all our bills.
Which was
we
good.
We were buying more equipment. We were trying to get some of this stuff bought that was going to be long-term purchases, trying to get stuff done, and doing some more street projects, blah, 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 all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, that was trying to kind of the overall, because we did have a surplus, so you need to try to do what you can to pass it on, too.
Sure. So now this wasn't forecasted, evidently, or you probably wouldn't have done the lowering.
The
Let's talk
PPR
about why we're talking about property tax increase right now.
right now is because that personal property replacement tax was like jumped up, whatever it was, 30% a couple years ago, and now it's dropped way down. Now they're expecting it to be way lower, and everything, all the projections are way lower. So now we're having to figure out how we're going to make up.
Okay.
So that's
So was that a
where-
bad decision in the past?
So where it started at, well, I mean, yeah, you can say from
I mean, I know, like,
Long
Hindsight
and
2020.
long
Yeah, I know.
and
I was just
long
about to say,
and
we
long
can't
ago.
look
Hindsight
at our,
2020, and that's why I was saying. So evidently, none of this was foreseen, or you probably could have.
Yeah, it's
planned a
all-
little bit better.
You're doing all projections.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so now this property tax increase, which is going to hit 14% of our overall property tax bill, right?
Wait, what?
Well, so 14% is from the city. This is only going to affect that chunk.
Right.
Okay, so
Is that 14% like a number that has been decided on? I thought they were still scaling.
well, hang on. So 14% of your overall tax
Same.
bill is city.
okay.
So only 14% will be affected by this property tax increase, whatever that is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't make
because
sense to me
we
at first,
as
but-
city people pay county, city.
School district.
Schools.
So your school
John
district
Wood.
doesn't come out of your city property
No.
taxes.
No.
So it's a different bucket, and this is why I
mean,
had
it
all these questions.
It's all on
Okay.
your property tax bill,
Okay.
together.
But it's not bucketed,
But-
which would be really nice.
But just a part of your overall property tax bill is the city.
If
That's
you
what I'm
live
saying.
just slightly outside of the city, but you're still in the county, your property tax bill has all these buckets besides your city tax bill?
Right. And some people are even getting double dipped where they're like right on the
Yeah.
brim, and some people pay like a portion in the county and in the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this property tax increase is proposed because of an increase in what again?
Well,
The
you're basically what we had come at us was the library first initially started this
okay.
with. They had a was it $500,000 increase, I think.
So they did increase their.
well, let's just use
So like
round
Ryan-
numbers because we don't have all the facts, and I just want to disclaimer that as well because this is so many numbers, and we don't want to misinform. So in round numbers, if the library comes at you and says, "Hey, we have this unexpected whatever," right?
What-
Is that essentially what happened?
Right.
Okay.
They
Go ahead.
tried to cut everything they could, and this is what they came down to.
How is
what they
this
said.
unexpected when? All right, sorry for my rant rave. Here I go.
'Kay.
We had a perfectly functioning library. It was not the most high technological library. It was a functioning library that people could use. They could get their sources. The main thing that I think people needed to get was access to Wi-Fi because the internet is the library.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have to get the internet at the library. Understood. I
And the
remem-
Dewey Decimal System.
I don't remember how long ago it was, but at some point in time, we decided we need to make our library bigger and better. And you know what? I love bigger and better like the next person. I think that was, sure, it was a great idea. But now, from what I'm understanding, is we can't afford
The bigger and better.
the bigger and
Maintenance.
better and the maintenance, which further goes to my ideas of everything in our ask system. We have a people, a group of asks, and I love the ideas that are brought to the community. I love the fact that we have a community full of great ideas, but it seems that we come to the table with all these asks to make things bigger
Better.
and better, and then when it comes down to the time to maintain them and the boiling point, we're in a bind.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't want to call the library like a spotlight shame blame game, but that's kind of what I feel like because it's all about optics and how we're selling it to the people. And when you're getting your property taxes raised, I think we are going to shame blame the library. I do think that I don't know, like we as a community constantly have great bigger ideas and then it comes to the table and we can't afford them. So I think we need to look at this in the future when we are thinking about riverfront development as he looks at me or other things. And I'm sorry for preaching right now, but this is it is a lot of numbers that I don't understand, but I see the overall picture of the things.
And the overall picture is basically like the conversation. That's why it's so
Is
tough
this
at
library
least-
now is more to
Well,
maintain?
it's just like Jeff Bergman's point, and when he brought up that amendment to basically get that, because we haven't had them at the same tax rate at what they could be at on the property tax bill to properly have them funded where people realize what they're paying for because we subsidize it out of the fund.
Why did
But
we?
now- but
Why
now
did we
would've-
subsidize it? Why did we subsidize it? For optics or what?
Yeah, to keep the property tax rate lower.
I mean,
is that-
I totally agree with
is that
Jeff
normal?
Bergman's points.
Is that
just
a
by the
normal
way.
thing that communities do with their public libraries?
I don't know, really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I mean, I'm
They
surprised.
have, that's state law for most municipalities is you have to have it
You
at
have
that
to
certain
fund.
rate.
Gotcha.
So
But why are we changing it now, other than
I think because
optics?
we finally hit this big number where we're gonna, if we fill their request, if we kept it at the same, we would be subsidizing them almost up to $1 million this year. out
So
of
now
the
you're
general
like,
fund.
screw
So
that, we
it's
gotta
like-
be transparent.
It's like when everyone
Mm-hmm.
is complaining about streets and potholes and all this stuff, it's like, how about some of this stuff where, like this pension funding, this stuff is all just gradually keeps creeping in a bad direction.
Sure.
And, you know, when I think it was probably 12 years ago, Sherry always gives us that chart that shows us
That
so
shit.
much that shit.
Yeah.
She gives that shows us the numbers of where the percentage that comes out of property tax versus what we fund out of general fund that goes to the pension. So like 80% of it used to just come out of the property tax, and now we're down to like 51%, and the rest comes out of like general fund and other stuff. So it's like that whole system is going to fail us
But
eventually.
it's basically just shifting numbers because the
It
number
is.
is still there. So I think with the library, if I understand it, and I'm not even trying to say that I do, trying to rebucket it is for transparency.
Yeah, it
And-
needs to be funded the way it should be funded.
It's all being funded no matter what, but to show real numbers and real buckets, and to be honest, I think when you're looking at property taxes, you should have full transparency there as well, because I think that not a lot of people understand, and I didn't until today.
Yeah, and kudos to you
Yeah.
and Jeff too for
Yeah.
like always asking the uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
I know it's like painted as sometimes being the bad guy, which
Well,
I
it's because
hate.
property taxes, what we collect, are supposed to go to pensions and library.
Don't hit your
Oh,
table
sorry.
because just like I
Right.
did, I ruined
Pensions
the thing.
and library, and that's it. So if you want to truly do your job right, you should be just having the same
Mm-hmm.
rate for what the money they need to operate is what the taxpayers, I guess, should be paying. And if the taxpayers don't want to pay that, then they're going to need to make cuts.
Well, okay, so that
Otherwise-
brings up the idea. Will there ever be the idea of a cut again of a library?
What happens if we cut the funding for a library? Do they cut off the addition, or do they just close? Or is there a scaled?
He might have.
I mean,
like,
I don't know.
we're just,
That
we're
would
just
be-
putting these
that would
questions
be
in
a-
the ether, but
Yeah,
would be a
but
question
those
for
are
the
negotiations that I think we
libraries.
always start here with this grand
Mm-hmm.
thing that's either we always kind of are presented with this black and white thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually we learn, oh, it doesn't have to be black and white. There's a negotiation, and here's how we can actually do it. And I think it's harder to swallow when you're like, oh, 25% tax increase? Well, we don't necessarily have to do that. Does that make sense?
Right.
And then it always kind of boils down to, well, we can do this amount that seems digestible by the general public. And I don't know if that's doable. Why wouldn't we just say, this is what's doable? And if not, this is your option as a taxpayer. And throw it to, I mean,
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
It just came to me.
Go for
it's
it.
probably a really bad one.
maybe
But you
not.
know how
Never know.
the QU stadium and is going on right now, and everyone's like, "Is this Quincy's stadium? Is this QU's stadium?" Obviously, it's QU's, but like the community could benefit from it. What if? And I don't want to like be the one that's like, I'm putting a stamp on because I love the library. I love everything about it.
Yeah.
It's always
I think they're
it helps
necessary
me.
in a community.
But what if somehow like the QU library and the Quincy Public Library came together and then we
Converged.
became a partnership on that, and that's how that stadium was somehow funded or helped out by. Again, I don't really believe in city getting involved with private endeavors, but if this is the type of of an endeavor that I think would benefit the city as a whole.
I think it's definitely an opportunity to look into more, but I do think that a community library is that. And although it was maybe poor planning to, expect that maintenance wouldn't go up and blah, 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 hindsight's 2020, and now we're looking at this property tax, what is the increase that's presented right now?
Well, let's see. So, I mean, basically they're at 0.9, and their request would take them to 0.2, but the max we would do is 0.15. So that's the difference of like about 300. Well, the difference is $500,000 for their request.
Okay.
What
does
So
that look like
That's
to?
what the subsidy is changing, basically, from $1 million to $500,000. So
Okay.
$500,000.
Okay, and what does that look like to Ashley? On next year's property tax bill, And if you don't have the answer, that's okay. But even round numbers, is that like a $30 increase? Is that a $130? Is it $330? What's that look like?
If we stuck with the library with that and the pensions at what we're going to do for that option, that is like, say you'd have a $200,000 house, that would, what they're estimating would be, let's see.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
According to our whatever, it's like
$13. So I don't know if that
aggregated over, so it would be divided by 12 probably.
it was 54, right? Bring it in, Bob.
What you have to do is look at and compare it to last year's. I want to say in the article I used the $200,000 reference. I want to say it was in the 54 range or
a month.
something like that.
Yep. So
No,
yeah,
your
we'd be
total
at
would
here.
increase $54.
Total.
Yeah.
That
But
doesn't
that's
make
not
any
6 months because
sense.
I pay my property taxes.
So half that.
Okay.
But-
So $25.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just the increase. Your total's $600.
Okay.
And so you'd be paying $300.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's what I'm more interested in. And I think when you take it down to that, because percentages, when you see an increase, it's always crazy. When you talk about real numbers and what's at stake, that's another thing. When you also talk about options, that's another thing.
We haven't decided, though, yet what the percentage is going to be. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, we haven't. I mean,
Okay.
we're
It could still be
doing
up
that-
to the
We're
proposed of
doing that truth in
25%.
taxation basically got it started at the highest rate. So then basically we don't have to, as long as we have it set at that highest rate, then we can work it
So
down.
the shell shock is there.
negotiate
They're
it.
trying to scare
Yes.
you to be like, it could be 25%.
Well, not necessarily scare, but maybe prepare
It's
and
scary.
say, this is the worst it will be.
Yeah.
And then when you
But
take
then the minimum it could be is what? Do we know? 4
Well-
point something? 4.9?
Yeah, the minimum would be your EAV, which they're predicting 7% to 8%.
Well, what
Okay,
does
but-
that mean if we only do the EAV 7 or 8%? What does that mean for the library? What does that mean for us?
I mean, it'd probably be about the equivalent of last year. So maybe
But what is, so if we don't,
of how much your property bill went up last year.
but if we
compared to the
don't
year
pay the exorbitant amount, what does that mean for the library? What does that mean for our community? Does that mean that they don't get maintenance? Does that mean that they
Well,
don't get,
That's
does that make sense?
Yeah, I would like
This would all come down to that last $500,000 to fill out their request, and that would come down to budget time.
Okay.
So depending on, that's what a lot of aldermen have already said is they'll be willing to vote for raising that rate for the library to give them that, and then anything above that will be highly scrutinized in the budget
Sure.
once the
Sure.
budget time comes.
that rate. You just said it was about 7%, right? Is what we're thinking. So, irregardless, I think I'm using that right.
That's yeah.
Regardless.
Regardless?
That's your uncontrollable factor, pretty much.
We will have to have a public forum then, or a public meeting, because it's more than 5%, right?
Right.
Has last year, did we have to have a public forum for more than 5%?
No, I think it was like it ended up being. That's right. It was like
4.97.
That's why
Got
we want
you
to keep it
good.
at 4.9.
What about what about the year
Even
before?
with what-
we don't need all this
But
bullshit.
It ended
Oh,
up
4.9.
calculating to that because they lowered the tax rate,
Yeah.
for a little.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah,
the
yeah.
year before that? So what about last year 4.97%. The year before that, was it over 5%? Did we have to have a public forum? When's the last
I
time
think
we
the
had
year
to have
before
a
that, it was almost flat.
When's the last time we had to have a public forum?
I don't know.
So
A
we
few
were
years ago.
how many?
I'd say a few years ago.
Did you have to sit on it?
I don't remember.
How could you
I
not
mean-
forget that?
He's a busy fella.
I know, but like that
honestly,
one. Think about
I
it.
don't think we've had one in a while because I don't
So-
remember having a increase like that.
No matter what, we're gonna have to have one this year, right?
Yep.
Unless we give you that 4.97%.
Right.
'Kay.
I think there's no way around it because you'd have to.
So
really-
I
there's a
hope you
big
don't have any
difference-
volleyball plans that night, Eric, because it sounds like a
No,
There's a
busy
it's
night.
difference
December
between-
23rd, I think, is when
Oy,
we vote
oy,
on
oy.
that.
Oh my God, Christmas Eve is when they're thinking about doing it.
Christmas,
That's to be our
Adam.
Monday night meeting, yeah.
Oh no.
They're really
Is that
gonna.
legit?
Yeah.
I feel like we need
I
to
feel like
revisit that.
Phoebe from Friends would be melting.
Oh
you
my
have
gosh,
to,
she was
and
so
we
sad.
have to get it done then. We have
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a big difference between 4.9 blah 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 and 25 point blah 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 blah. So how do you then decide? Is it based on public feedback? Is it based on public
Or has it already been
reception?
decided?
Or is it already like, well, this is the number we have to reach to keep the library in effect open? Or see, this is my thing.
I
and
don't
this
think
is
the
what I mean.
library, in effect, to be open is
That's
a
not even a
question.
thing?
I don't want to like put that out there for the public. No, I do not think that's a thing at all. Like
Well,
it's
what's
already,
the-
they are by law supposed to fund them a certain amount. So the library closing thing is not a thing.
Okay.
Yep.
It's just maybe, I guess, a future option for like 2026 looking into or something like that. I do not.
Or how do
wanna
we plan
say.
better? Maybe
and
that's
I'd like
the
to
thing.
point out too, for all the other people on Facebook, that anytime you talk about any funding of the library, I'm not against the library.
Yeah.
No, we all love the
Well,
library.
Who doesn't love a
But it's a
library?
cost.
I've been on the council
It's
for
a
almost
cost.
10 years,
Yeah.
and I've always voted in approval
library.
of the
Me too.
library funding.
Me too.
And,
I love it.
And last year, they had a $300,000 increase. They raised all their employees had on average of 12% raises on every employee in the library.
When's the last time you got a raise?
That was the one that Jeff Bergman and I tried to
I would
make
have
an amendment on at
kind
budget
of
time,
said, hey.
and we voted against that.
Have we
But
ever done?
again, even though we voted against that increase, we still thought
And they're
there was
look at you
maybe
like-
a different way to do it. Maybe they didn't have to give everyone raises, but either way, a 12% increase was just a lot for us to swallow.
That's a
Well-
lot for anybody to swallow.
So then again, this year it's $300,000 again.
So here's-
that's the thing is I'm all for the library. I want the library to
We are
thrive
not
and
book
operate.
burners.
No, but I do
But
have
I
questions.
can't. You can't be an alderman that just keeps saying yes to everything either.
So I have questions on how is anyone determining if this is correct? Because I look at a library and I think of technology, and I know that Wi-Fi
Right.
is expensive, but I know
Right.
that it's not as expensive as hardback books. So I want to look into the costs, the actual cost of a library, and how are they increasing enough to determine that this is the amount that they need. Also, what are the actual overhead costs? Is it maintenance? Is it employment? Is it I don't know, heating and air? What are the actual?
Lastly, what's the usage?
What are the costs of this library, and how are we determining that this is actually a legit increase, and where do these numbers come from? Because I don't know, in effect, like, is this true? Is it not true? Is there a committee that's based solely to look at these costs, especially? So I would take these two buckets, pension and library. What are the actual costs, and why are we looking at it? I guess that's
You
a
can't
question
take
for
back
you.
on pensions because that's something that was promised.
No, I'm not saying take back, but
But,
how do
like-
we know that these costs are actually legit, and how do we know that these numbers that are being posed to our city council that we have to swallow and pass on to our community members, what are these costs and where are they coming from? And I'm going to need a paper trail.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
mean,
say.
the library, just like us, has a board.
I want to trust them.
They have a board. They have a
Yeah.
board of trustees and everything. I mean, they have. It's, I think, pretty laid out there. But anything extra beyond this, what we're gonna do for this tax levy, that's the extra. That is what really is going to be scrutinized. And like
Yeah.
what you say, at budget time,
Yeah.
yes, that's when we do get into
Okay.
the thick of it and start to ask a lot of those questions.
It's boring, but it's necessary. Like,
Because really now the amount you would be funding with this tax levy, you're not even going to really generate enough for what
You're
they
not
had
touching it.
last year.
Yeah, you're not touching.
So you're still going to have to subsidize them.
Yeah.
And you're still going to ask questions at budget time. That's what we'll do.
I think
Good.
one of the questions though is usage too. I know, like, I don't know how you measure that, but usage in our actual library. If everyone
Library cards.
No, because if like some people are just going there to use or utilize the internet, then I guess you have to measure it that way, some way. But for the most part, everyone has a phone. And even if you can't afford a phone, there are subsidized phone plans where you get access to Wi-Fi where, I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say like for sure, but I know we are shooting for that, like every family in Adams County has access to Wi-Fi.
Sure.
Therefore, you have a library in your hand. So again, the usage of this public library is something that I think needs to be measured too. I don't know how you measure.
Reading is one thing, but I think the library, and I do want to stick up for them, they offer more than just
it's the
reading.
experience.
And
It's an experience.
Not just that, but they offer so many programs for kids, and they do a lot for our community. So I don't want to downplay that, but I do think there are other ways to
could
maybe
that-
approach this. So
Could that
fundraising,
become a
because if
non-for-profit
everybody- Yeah, that's
and not a tax?
I don't think
embodied-
it can be, but I think you can do fundraising as a community. So they do like the read thing, and they do so much stuff.
Oh yeah,
It's-
for the schools.
They
and
do.
stuff,
They do
all the
so much good
outreach.
stuff.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think that as and I've said this since day one, Quincy as a community shows up for things that we want.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that we're not going to show up through property taxes and we'll do what we can to support the library, but I do think there are other ways to subsidize it outside of just saying, let's just, assume the risk or assume the tax increase and hope and pray that it's enough and, make these programs readily available for our community. I think maybe at this point the library can, this might sound bad, put some skin in the game, do some fundraising, do some other, go about it other ways to try to subsidize it for the city, because they have a lot of opportunity there and a lot of people want a library.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
right?
I will, and I want to say my last note on this, and this has nothing to do with again, Eric's thing. I don't like seeing it's the shame blame game. Like we're putting the library on
Right.
the optic spectrum right now. Why now? It's always been this way. Why now? It's because a little bit has to do with the fact that we inevitably have to raise for our pension deficit, and that is based solely on poor decisions in the past. So to put the library up on a platter, kind of
That's
is
true. Maybe we
not
need to have the pension
cool.
people doing a fundraiser.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just want to be like, I love books too, and I'm
Yeah.
not a book burner. I did want to put that out there. I wanted to explore this. I know it's not Eric that did this. I'm so glad that Eric explained it. I thank Eric for accepting my invite in
really
the full
cool.
fashion.
Very cool. So
I-
okay, pensions is a whole nother discussion. It's not that I disagree with all of it.
That's not how
I
Eric
definitely
got invited.
It is, but there's aspects.
needs
There's
to
so many
be-
things that we
yeah.
can't control.
Yeah.
That we have to try to do things when we can control some things. But that's what like you guys are saying with the pension stuff. That is stuff that is completely out
a
of our
monster.
control. By 2040, we've got 15 years. We have to have it 90%
We have to
funded.
complete
There's
these
no matter
promises.
What
made
happens
by-
if we don't?
I don't really know.
See,
I don't
that's what
know.
I'm saying. It's all it's
the state of Illinois. What do you? They are making.
They're not going to all quit their jobs.
They made the mess, and now they have to have us fix it, and they still haven't stopped the bleeding, and now they still have people that in legislation that are wanting to change the tier system
So
to
this is
add
kind of
more
a
people to
state
the pension.
thing bleeding
Make it
down on a
worse.
city
well,
thing.
it always is.
When
Yeah.
that's always my complaint that I try to get out to people is we have a super majority over there in Springfield
Yeah.
that can change this. And the only answer to the pension problem they ever say is, well, we're not taking away the rights from the workers that are they're guaranteed that. Yeah, we know that. That's like saying the sky is blue.
Yeah.
That's what everyone knows.
Yeah.
You do not take it. But
fix
to
it,
keep
assholes.
But to keep signing people up
Yeah.
for the program we can't afford year after year,
Yeah.
all the new employees.
Irresponsible.
That's
And I was just gonna
someone has
say,
to do something about it sometimes.
some of
'cause
my
we
best
can't-
friends
when
are-
when I started, we were paying under $5 million a year for pensions. Now we're over $10 million this year. So I mean,
not
how do
getting
you
better.
expect any of us to get better streets and all this stuff in any time soon when we're just barely getting by?
I have a very out of the box suggestion.
That's
We may need to go into it another time, but I think we could be a pioneer city that is like, you know what? You take care of your pensions.
but
We'll take care of our streets.
yeah,
We'll
but
see
let
you
me
later.
let me tell you, thank God for video gaming.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. That's been one thing that has been throwing extra money.
Really?
$1.5 million a year.
Oh, you mean like the gambling gaming? I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
wait, what are you talking about?
Oh,
Mario
sorry.
Kart? Huh?
I've donated to that.
Yeah,
little bit. I think I fixed a couple.
But
streets.
that does what now?
Whatever.
What is that?
That basically, like the tax from that is about $1.5 million a year going into the pension fund.
Pensions.
That money goes in towards pension fund.
Does any of it go towards education?
Whatever happened to lottery?
I thought that was.
Didn't the lottery,
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it
don't know,
established for
but that
education?
goes
I'm
to
not putting you on the hot
schools
seat,
or
but
something
it's
for the
supposed
state.
to.
Yeah, for
but
the
I
state.
doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's probably going to Madigan's
That's
trial.
what I say when I buy a lottery ticket. That's my donation to the school.
Yeah,
There
right?
you go.
Damn it. Well, okay, so this is one of the last questions, I think, unless Brett has more, but when do we find out the culmination of all of this? Or when do we vote? Or what's the next step? I guess let's start small. What's the next step?
When we do the
forum.
forum,
Okay.
the open
Believe it.
Public forum.
the public forum,
Okay, well,
which
there you
I
go.
think is December
10th?
9th,
9th is a Monday.
So that's when it would be.
So
Yeah.
it'd be like before the council meeting.
So if people want to come
Wait,
and
before the
scream-
council?
Is it before or maybe during, right?
Come on, Bob Bowie. I don't know.
Be
We'll
December
put
9th.
it down here.
Either way, we'll figure it out. But if you want to have your voice heard, make sure you do that in a tactful manner is all I ask, because these people who are up there representing our city, our community, are just like us.
I
They
think-
don't get paid an exorbitant amount. It is a thing that they're doing for our community. I think sometimes we may have harsh feelings about what comes out of these meetings, but it doesn't change the fact that they're there to represent us, and we have to do our part to have our voices heard. Thank you, Brittany, for all of your smarts
I think
on this.
they should dress, Jason Priestley, and that way you get
Priest.
really No, I'm saying
Priestley, I think, was 90210.
no, I'm saying Jason Priestley. Like I'm using it as an adjective. Like
Oh.
Gotcha.
that's
Oh,
how you dress,
as
Jason
in.
Priestley.
Yes.
That way you get super noticed for whatever it
I
is that
disagree,
you want to
guys.
say.
I disagree.
Well,
Well, I don't know. If you showed up in a negligee, you might get hurt.
maybe,
Yeah,
or
100%.
they'd be like, that was expected. What was obviously expected was how it was. It's not expected, but how I got him on here.
Yeah,
real
because
quick.
I was like, I don't know if
She's
he'll
like,
come
how did
on.
how did you do that? And I was like, okay,
favorite
so
hometown bar.
I
Favorite hometown bar.
I met him. I saw him at the end of the night on the night before Thanksgiving Eve, and I did my due
Thanksgiving.
diligence of Blackout Wednesday. I got a safe ride home, and wasn't driving. But then I was looking and reviewing my messages later. I was like, "What's 3 p.m. on blah blah blah?" And he's
I
like,
have no idea, dude.
and I'm like, "I have no idea." And then he tells me, and he's like, "Well, what with."
Remember that girl?
That was a busy night.
When you said, remember that girl hitting, and I'm like, I really hope you're making this up. But we won't even go into
I was
that.
like, tell him new phone who dis.
That's exactly what I was going to do. I'm
That's
so
why you always
glad.
back into those parking spots
Yeah.
on Spring Street, right?
Back her in.
Yes.
Back
I'm
her
so
in.
glad that this came into fruition, even though, I wasn't exactly sure what was going on.
I think it's important to talk about these types of things in a way that we all understand. And thank you for entertaining all of this, even though it's probably not exciting or comfortable to talk about.
I'm yelling at Entrup in the middle of the bar.
Yeah.
Tell me about this tax
Yeah.
bill.
It's if Brittany is not curious, she's nothing. I think it's like she has this need to know what the hell is going on in our
I
community.
do have a need to
which-
know, and I encourage everybody to have a need to
I
know.
do
If you want to
too.
have a say in something, then you need to have a need
Yeah,
to know.
Need to know, absolutely. Eric Entrup, thank you so much for everything you brought to our conversation
Thanks
and
for
for joining
having
us.
In the holiday season.
Indeed. I don't even know if I think that's a part of it. I think it's the part of the Saturday Night Live where he's like spinning around. He's like, slow it down. Will Ferrell, have you guys seen that one?
No.
Oh, check it out. Saturday Night
More
Live.
cowbell.
Yeah, right?
Thanks for
All right.
having me.
Cheers, Eric. Thank you so much for representing Quincy and for everything else.